everyone, I'm Zal, and today we're interviewing industry experts in the field of survey and data collection. Our guest today is Mr. Daniel Hoover, Director of Client Service of Dataforce. Daniel oversees the development, planning, and execution of all Dataforce client projects. He is responsible for managing Dataforce's business relationship with its clients. He works with clients to help them fulfill orders, resolve issues, and answer questions. So tell me, Daniel, what is a typical day like for a Director of Client Service?
Answering a lot of questions and addressing a lot of change requests, typically. Helping coordinate the teams so everybody knows kind of where they're supposed to be at, what needs to be printed, what needs to, kind of what our deadlines are, but also addressing customer questions. And I also spend a fair amount of time in planning, kind of digesting that material as well. Once I've met with the team and building out a schedule, building out a list of dependencies, things of that nature.
All right. And what challenges have you helped customers overcome recently?
So one of the ones that really stands out in recent events is a project where a lot of the clientele, or excuse me, a lot of the participants are elderly, and a lot of the populace is starting to become deceased or incapable of completing a survey. And our client was struggling in that they weren't seeing a very high response rates, and they suspected that a lot of it was because the person had already passed away, or was otherwise unavailable, maybe hospitalized, dementia, something like that, and couldn't complete the survey, but they weren't getting any feedback because nobody was returning the surveys. So we suggested to them on their next survey print to include a return postcard that already had postage printed on it, and it just had a couple of check boxes that indicated whether the person was deceased or incapacitated, and they've seen a much higher rate in responses now. They haven't gotten completed surveys, but at least they've gotten a lot more contact since they've introduced that method from their population.
Oh, okay, that's good. And how do you go about planning a schedule for a data collection project?
The first thing that I like to do if I have the benefit of having completed this project in the past is I will almost always go to my old project plans, my old documentations, and I will pull a list of the activities. I look at a list of the lessons that we learned on those last projects, and even if it's not a project identical to that one, a lot of times mailing projects tend to be very similar. Projects with incentive elements tend to be very similar, and projects that have a fulfillment element tend to be very similar. So even if I can't borrow from that direct project from last year, I can usually pull from at least a comparable project that'll kind of give me a starting point. And then any things that I'm not familiar with at that point, I may need to plan out further with my team, but that usually gives me a pretty solid foundation for my activity lists. And then from there, I can start planning out how much time do I need for each activity, and then where that falls into the schedule. And as far as managing the schedule, I personally use a browser-based software called Teamwork, which is what allows us to build out all of our projects online in a collaborative environment that all of our team has access to at any point in time.
Thank you, Daniel, for all those answers. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the first half of our interview. The second half of the interview will be on the next video, where Daniel will also answer a popular customer query of how much will a mail survey cost. Please stay tuned, everyone, and have a nice day.